Great to be here with everybody. I'm just going to provide a 10-15 minute quick intro to what Weaviate is. And because this is a hackathon, I won't be doing a lot of talking. I'll just show you code and show you what you can accomplish with Weaviate. So Weaviate is an open source vector database. And a vector database, I'm assuming a lot of people know what this is, but I'll give a quick 1 minute recap of this. So a vector database like Weaviate, essentially how it works is you start off with your encoder models. So these are machine learning models that any one of these companies like Cohere, OpenAI, Hugging Face host and create. You take these machine learning models and you essentially pass your data through these. And this can be any unstructured data, right? This can be text, images, audio, any type of data that you can imagine, you can pass through these models, and you take the vectors that come out of these models, the embeddings, and you can put them into a vector database like Weaviate. Right? And the reason why you would want to do this is because now you have a numerical representation of all your data. You can take a query, you can vectorize it through that exact same model, put it into a vector database, and then now you can do near object search. You don't, the vector database will understand what your data means. It knows how close concepts are and then how far they are as well. Right? And so classically, this is the end of it. Right? You can query your vector database and you get a list of results and you send that back to the user. But because this is deep hack and we're interested in deep learning, what I thought I'd do is I'd put a spin on this. And really what we'd like to do, instead of outputting our results to users, is we want to conduct vector search in this domain here, but we want to pass the output to a large language model, a generative AI model that can build on top of the context that we've given it. And so the greatest application of this is in generative search, where I'm sure all of you have heard about ChatGPT. So I'll demo how you can use Weaviate with ChatGPT. And the main idea behind this is that ChatGPT by itself cannot be used on your own data. So it's read everything, so it has a very a wide general knowledge. But let's say you have proprietary company documents or you have personal documents, ChatGPT doesn't know about them. It hasn't read it. What you can do is you can take all of those documents, vectorize them, and store them into Weaviate. If your documents are not already vectorized, then we have separate modules that you can choose to vectorize those, put them into Weaviate, and then given a prompt that you would usually give to ChatGPT, you can send that prompt to Weaviate, and then we can filter through those documents and give you relevant documents. And now, along with the prompt to ChatGPT, you can also send these relevant documents, so it can answer the question grounded in the context of these filtered documents. Right? And so this is how you get a customized response out of ChatGPT. I know there might be a lot of questions about the retrieval plugin. The retrieval plugin essentially gives you the same functionality. We're working with OpenAI to develop that as we speak. But for now, for this hackathon, we'll make the generative module, generative OpenAI module accessible to everybody here. So, and I'll demo that in just a second so that you can work with Weaviate and ChatGPT as well. Okay, so that's all the talking that I wanted to do. I just wanted to go over to my code now and give you guys a quick demo. All right, so I put this demo together last night, and I wanted to demonstrate the some of the most powerful features of Weaviate here. I'm going to demonstrate the Python Weaviate client, but we have a ton of other clients that you can go to our website and you can check out. But the only thing you need to get set up for this demo is the Weaviate client, so you can install that using this. And you want to make sure that you're up to date with the most recent client here. And to get a instance of Weaviate going, you can go to the WCS cloud. You can make an account here and you can create a free instance here. The only limitation is that you'll only be able to store 100,000 objects, but for a hackathon, that should be fairly good, and that'll be online for 14 days, and you can query as much as you like. For this particular demo, we're going to be using a model from a company called Cohere. And obviously, we're going to be using generative search, so we need a OpenAI API key. So I've created a Weaviate cluster here in preparation for this demo. Some of the details here, I've uploaded 100,000 objects to this cluster, and these are just Wikipedia articles. So I took a very big data set and I chunked off 100,000 objects. I put it into Weaviate, and I'll show you what we can accomplish with this. So the very first thing I did here was I created a database schema. I specified what I want to put into my database. And in this case, because my data is already vectorized, I don't need Weaviate to vectorize it for me. If it wasn't vectorized, you could enable vectorization, and it would take a little longer, but you would still be able to pop the data in a batch and then vectorize as you go. It's just quicker if it's already vectorized. We create the database schema, and then this is the data set that we're working with here. And as you can see, it's just Wikipedia articles that are chunked into paragraphs. And these are we've already got the embeddings, the vectorizations generated for us here. And this is a multilingual data set. So I think this particular data set has over 50 different languages that you can use. And this is one of the reasons why we're using a Cohere model, because it interprets multiple languages as well. Once you've got your data set loaded up, you can configure the batch operation. So when you upload data to Weaviate, it batches it and then it uploads it in batches. So we're going to upload 100 data points at a time. And then this is our uploading process. So I ran this. So now I've got 100,000 objects, which is what my Weaviate cloud service dashboard was showing before. And then from this point on, it's mainly just about querying, right? So once you've got this in, this is a one-time deal. Once you've got that data in, now you can query all you want. So here I've created a semantic search function that I'll demonstrate in just a second. I'm going to be demonstrating keyword search, so classical search. I'm going to do semantic search as well as generative search, but there's a lot of other search modalities that we support. So you can do hybrid search, where you can combine semantic search as well as classic word search. So if you want to learn more about that, all of that information is available in the documentation. So the most simplest search that we can do here is we can look for the word avocado, right? And here, oh, 1 second, live demo here. Let me rerun this. Okay, there we go. So here, all it's doing is it's looking for an article that has the word avocado in it, right? So nothing special. Any database can do this. Where it gets interesting is when you start to do semantic search, right? In semantic search, you can type in a query, and it will return to you. In this case, I've limited to 5, so it only returns 5 articles, the 5 most relevant articles to this particular search. And it also gives you a measure of distance between your query and the article, right? So you can quantify how similar a returned article is. So this is fairly good. I didn't have the word Python in here, but it returned to me that the Python is the most popular machine learning language. Because this is also multilingual, and I thought this would be a great application specifically because we're in India, you can ask it a prompt in Hindi. And so this is Hindi for good movies, and it will work just as well, right? Because the model understands Hindi, and it understands a lot of different languages. So I think there's a lot of creative stuff that you can do with this. There's also, another example here, you can ask it for famous vacation spots in Farsi, and that works just as well. I'm a big cricket fan, and this is the first talk that I'm giving in India, so there's no way that my demo wasn't going to be about cricket. So here I've put together a bunch of examples of generative search. So the first thing I'm going to do is look through 100,000 Wikipedia documents and see what it comes up with if I ask about famous cricketers from India. So here you get some of the famous cricketers. You get multiple matches here because the Wikipedia articles are chunked into paragraphs. Right? And so, there's a question. Is it using cosine-based similarity? Yes, it's using, well, in this case, it's using the dot product, actually. And then, so here, the metric that that this particular model was trained to optimize is the dot product. Right? So this is semantic search. What I referred to in my slides was you can take 100,000 articles, you can pass in a prompt, and then take the filtered articles here, so these 5 filtered articles, and you can pass them off to ChatGPT, and you can ask it to conduct or generate a output or answer a task, taking these in as context, right? And this is where it gets really cool. These are some of the functionalities that ChatGPT and the retrieval plugin that they've recently announced cater to as well. Soon, that is going to be available with Weaviate. We're actually working on that right now. But for now, what you can use is the generative OpenAI module that we've put together, and it works in a similar manner. Right? So let's break this down first here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a prompt, and this is the prompt for ChatGPT. So this is what I'm going to send to ChatGPT. And then what I do is instead of sending this directly to ChatGPT through their completions API, I'm going to query my vector database, and I'm going to say, give me all of the titles and texts for articles that have to do with famous cricketers from India. And I'm going to limit it to 3. And I'm going to call this with generate single prompt generate method on this. What this does is it takes each one of the 3 documents that are returned from Weaviate, and it passes them to ChatGPT one at a time so that it can answer this question. And now notice how I've embedded the returned concepts within the documents into the prompt. So I can say, write me some interview questions. I can ask whatever the return title is, and here's some information about them. So if you run this prompt, it takes a while because I'm using the OpenAI API here. So here, the first thing I want to point out is that the relevant context here is Virat Kohli. So through the 100,000 documents, when I searched for famous cricketers, the very first one I got was Virat Kohli. And then what I said here was write me some interview questions that I can ask Virat Kohli. And here's some information about them. And this is their Wikipedia information. Right? And it generated, as a result of this, what questions you can ask him. Right? You can do a lot of other cool things here as well. Right? So you can ask, take those same 3 cricketers and write me a heroic tale about them, and you can send a list of their accomplishments. And here you get, so you get generated text about Dravid and a story about him. Do the same thing about Tendulkar. So this is one returned response goes to ChatGPT. You generate you answer a prompt with respect to that context. Right? The other way that you can use the generative search generative module is you can take everything that your vector database returns, wrap it up, and send it to ChatGPT through one prompt. And so now it has to read through everything that was returned. So if you return 10 articles, it reads through everything and it answers one question. It answers one prompt as a result of that. So this is the grouped task. Right? So here, almost everything is the same, except now what I'm doing is with generate, I'm doing a group task, and I'm returning 15 articles, 15 paragraphs. And it says here, which of these cricketers in these text is the most accomplished? Right? And I wanted to choose at least one. So here, it shows me that these are the different articles that it found as a result of my search here, cricket. There's a lot of them are relevant. There are some irrelevant ones here as well, right? So that it returns some cricket insect ones as well. But once you take all these articles and you pass them off to ChatGPT, it prints out a list of great cricketers from those articles. And you can do a lot of prompt engineering around this as well, right? So let's say I do this exact same prompt, But now I add in choose at least one and explain why. Not just their names, but explain why they were chosen. And if you run this, it'll explain itself. So out of that list that we just saw, it picks Tendulkar, and then it has a lot of context around why it's picking Tendulkar, because we're passing in the text that the vector database sent out. There's a question in the chat about multi-tenancy. If I have multiple users, clients on my platform, should I create separate indices for each of them? Or should I store the user ID in Weaviate and filter by user ID for every query? One second, let me understand this. Multiple users, clients on my platform, separate indices for each of them. So you can choose to pass in your own user IDs, or you can pass the unique objects in one by one, and we can generate the user IDs. If you already have the user IDs, then you can pass them in when you're passing your data into Weaviate. So if you have a look at the quick start guide on Weaviate, it'll show you exactly how you can specify where your user IDs would come from. And then if your data is not already vectorized, then you can specify exactly how you want it to be vectorized as well. Right? Let's say you have multiple text fields, or you've got a text field along with images. You can use different modules that we've already built into Weaviate to vectorize those. Let's say you have an image as well as text. You can use the OpenClip module to vectorize both of those images and text together. Right? What are some advantages? Another question. Some advantages does Weaviate have compared to Vertex, AI matching engine, Pinecone, or any other vector stores? Yeah, so I would say Weaviate is completely open source. The other advantage is that it's built on top of approximate nearest neighbors search, HNSW technology. And I would say scalability is the biggest power of Weaviate. We've tested this vector database with 1 billion data objects, and it scales very well. You can have 1 billion data objects. In fact, the data set that we tested on was from Facebook, their Sphere data set, and it scaled really well. The query time was very consistent from 1 million to 1 billion objects. Right? So I think on a small scale, there's not that much difference, but especially when you scale up and when you want to take an application into production, we've kind of battle tested this thing specifically for that. And I would say that those are some of our major strengths compared to Pinecone or Vertex AI. I love the questions. You can keep them coming, by the way. Okay, so where were we on this? Oh yes, group task. Take all of the returned articles and send them to ChatGPT for it to answer a question. By the way, these can all be multilingual. So the model itself does not need to be from OpenAI. The model itself can be your trained model, or from a third party. It can be from Hugging Face or Cohere. That doesn't matter, right? Because it's the actual text we're sending to ChatGPT. It doesn't care about the embeddings. Right? Yeah, in this one, we're asking it the same thing, but now we're crafting our prompt to be a little better. Right? So we've chosen not just all the cricketers, but just the best cricketers from India, and now it compares against these. Is streaming indices possible with Weaviate? As I have data streaming in and I want it to index on the fly, does it take a lot of time? Or indexing takes very small time? Yeah, so that's a great question. You can actually, for that particular application, I would recommend you look at this. So Weaviate has a Spark connector. So if you've got data that's streaming in from Spark, you can actually stream it through Spark directly to Weaviate. And it's very, very quick. So for that particular application, I would recommend this. Can this be used as a database to store embeddings of a complete enterprise for enterprise search? Complete embeddings for an enterprise. I'm not sure what you mean by enterprise, but if you mean your own data, like for your company's data, for sure. That's one of the main applications, right? What you have to choose is how you vectorize that data, how you chunk it up. Documents of the enterprise. Yeah. So if it's company proprietary documents, you have to be careful how you chunk it up, because how you chunk it up will determine how you can search over them. If you take entire documents and you vectorize those entire documents, the vectorizations are not going to be, they're going to be centroids for those entire documents. So this is one of the reasons why in the Wikipedia data set, we chunked up individual paragraphs. So, but that's definitely an application of this. You can definitely take company documents, any documents really. So if you're running a legal firm, let's say, you can take different documents, vectorize them, put them into your database, and then you can do vector search over them. More concerned about the scale. Yeah, so what scale vectors and how many objects do you guys have? I can answer more specifically if I know that. While you're letting me know, let me finish this demo off here. You can ask it very interesting questions here, right? So you can ask it why all this text is similar, and you can give it all cricketers, and it identifies this. So this is not very surprising. The last thing here is I put in a bunch of cricketers here, and then I said, tell me a story where all of these people fight each other, and I gave it the context about all the people. Right? So I gave them Wikipedia paragraphs about all of them, and it generates a fairly good story about how all of these different, and these are the characters of my story that I got from Weaviate, and I passed it to ChatGPT, and it tells a fairly good story about how uh, how they can interact in a cricket match. Oh, okay. So maybe 10,000 documents. 10,000 documents is no problem. Like I said, Weaviate has been tested with 1 billion documents. So depending on how you, I should say 1 billion objects. So the Sphere dataset has 1 billion data objects. If you take your 10,000 documents, let's say you chunk it up and you tokenize them, or you segment it such that it turns into 1 million documents, you can easily search over that, store that into Weaviate. The only the thing that might take time is when you vectorize them, right? So you want to make sure that you choose the right vectorizer to vectorize them, and then once it's vectorized, then you can query them very quickly. It's not a problem. Another question, let's say we want to build a chatbot for follow-up Q&A, whereas the user replies context changes. What would be the best way to approach this? Shall we vectorize and index all possible conversations? And whenever a user asks a follow-up question, search for similar questions and find corresponding reply given. Oh, this is pretty awesome. So just to answer that question, we had a recent blog that was written up here, and it's interesting because this blog answers exactly your question. The idea here is if you want to create a chatbot, you can't just send individual questions to ChatGPT. You have to send it the context of previous questions. And the way you do that is by combining Weaviate with LangChain. And LangChain allows you to take the context of previous conversations, wrap it up, put it into your vector database, and then send all of that relevant information to ChatGPT. And so let me show you an example of this. So let's say you've got a conversation going on with the chatbot. You can take its answers, put it into Weaviate, and then get it to answer questions with regards to its own previous answers. Can you please point to the document which mentions that you have tested with 1 billion documents? Yes, for sure. So that is another blog post here. So this is over here. If you look at, and we did this at the end of last year. Let me just pull this up. So if you want to read about the data set that we put in, this is the blog post that you want to read that I wrote over here. So the Sphere data set in Weaviate. And if you want to know what type of hardware and software we use to test the whole thing, there's a follow-up blog post here that goes over everything. And I can share these links in the chat here for all of you that are interested. So that's the one that covers the metrics, how Weaviate held up as we were uploading data. So in fact here we got up to 900 million objects, and there was linear performance here as we were inserting the objects into Weaviate, and the data set is only as big as this. Right? And you can read more about the data set here, and I will also link the LangChain where you can pass the LangChain blog post where you can pass in context. All right. There's another question. Is there any integration of Lambda index, GPT index with Weaviate? Yes. So if you want to learn more about that, there's actually a podcast that we recently did with the founder of GPT index, and that's on our YouTube channel. So you can learn about that, and you can also read about it in our docs. This is awesome. Thanks, everybody. That's everything that I had. Unless there's any more questions, have fun with the hackathon. And if you make something cool with Weaviate, join us on our Slack community, share it with us. We always love to hear about it. All right. Thank you, folks.